Once again, once again, I welcome you all. It's truly encouraging to see such an engaged audience gathered to explore critical issues in cyber awareness and safety. Today's session addresses a highly significant and sensitive issue, that is online harassment against women, cyber laws in India related to online harassment. Now, if you're ready to start this journey, type ready in the chat and show us your enthusiasm with your favorite emoji. Type ready in the chat box. Good evening, everyone. I'm Janvi, and it's a great privilege for me to introduce today's esteemed speaker, Miss Anamika Shukla. Ma'am is currently serving as an assistant professor of law at Gujarat National University, GNLU, in Gandhinagar, while pursuing her PhD at the West Bengal National University of Juridical Sciences in Kolkata. A NET JRF qualifier 2022 and a gold medalist in LLM technology law from Hidayatullah National Law University. She has established herself as a promising academician in technology law, AI governance, digital rights, and sports law. Her impressive portfolio includes publication in the top Scopus Index journals, plus hands-on roles organizing conferences, delivering expert lectures, shaping policy discussion, and co-investigating research on online gaming and crypto assets. This blend of teaching, research, and policy work equips her uniquely for today's session. Ma'am offers profound expertise in real world perspective on legal work framework, making her an ideal voice for our today's discussion. So, without any further delay, I would now like to invite Ms. Anamika Shukla ma'am to take over the session and share her valuable insights with all of us.
Thank you, Janvi, first of all, for that very warm welcome. Well, thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me to join the session on your Cyber Sunday sessions. It's very, very important that we continue to have these discussions. So, a huge congratulations to the entire team for organizing these Sunday on Sunday. So without further ado, if it's okay with you, I will share my screen.
Yes.
Yes.
Definitely, ma'am.
Yeah. So you have to give me the presenter's rights, Janvi.
Okay. Let me just ask someone because I am not having
Sure.
it.
Just 1 second. Lakshita, please stop sharing so that ma'am can start sharing. Now, ma'am, you can go ahead.
No, it's not allowing.
Oh, okay. I'm making you co-host.
Yes.
Yes, now you are the co-host. Please check now.
I don't suppose it's sharing.
Please check. You are co-host, so you can, I guess.
Yes. Got it. So everyone is able to look at the screen? Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Just drag this down.
Ma'am, just one request. Can you please go to your Zoom screen so that you can switch off the annotation for others? Otherwise, people can annotate this PPT. Go to your
Which is,
Zoom Meet.
yeah. This is the Zoom Meet, right?
Yes, go to the Zoom Meet, and there is
Yeah.
an option called sharing screen on your screen.
Yes.
And there is a three dot. Just click on three dot, and there is an option called disable annotation for others.
Can't see that option.
Okay, go ahead. As of now, we'll see.
Okay. Everyone is able to see the slides, right? There are 3 people
Yes,
in the
ma'am.
room. Quickly just allow them. Right. So I would urge everyone, if you have a question, please feel free to ask. Share your questions in the chat box if that's, something that you want to do. Let's make it extremely interactive because what we're dealing with, online harassment against women, I think is perhaps one of the most foremost problems that, we face in today's day and age. It is a digital era, and most of the women who get to exercise any kind of their identity online, be it on social media platforms, be it gaming platforms, be it any of your messaging applications, you would find that most of us have gone through some or the other unwelcomed sort of engagement that was not invited, that was something that made us push push us into an uncomfortable spot. And if it's not happened to you, it has perhaps happened to a friend, to a sister, to someone that you know, right? What statistics show us today is that 1 in every 3 women have faced and suffered some or the other kind of online harassment. If you go ahead and check NCRB data, you would find that year on year there has been significant increase. There was a statistics I was reading just last week where it said that there was a 200 percentage year on year increase between 2023 and 24, which is a huge percentage in terms of just the reported numbers. Imagine the plight that would have happened in reality, because many women don't even know where to go and report. Or many women, choose to remain silent, thinking that, there could be shame associated with it, or just a lack of awareness that it can be reported and something can be done about it. And, some of us even feel that, there's no trust in the system as such. And so reporting doesn't make sense because nothing really will happen. So with that kind of attitude, imagine when there is a 200 percentage growth in the reported numbers, what the sad reality of our society would be. Now, on that note, it becomes extremely important for us to have this conversation, because conversation leads to change. It leads to a ripple effect in policy. It leads to a ripple effect in, trying to push a systemic sort of, movement forward. So on that note, as much as we share and as much as we converse today, it becomes important. This conversation becomes important. Now, just a second. Yes. Now, just to very briefly sort of talk about what the digital reality for women in India is. Now, we have initiatives like your Digital Bharat initiative, right, which is pushing for more internet accessibility, more internet, permeation, penetration across your urban setup, across your rural setup. However, you find yourself placed in a very paradoxical society, in the sense that while, one the government is pushing for rapid transformation, it is pushing for digitization, more accessibility. You find that all of this transformation is happening within a very deep-seated, deep-rooted structural inequality. Now, if you were to, for a moment, look at the trend or the pattern of crime and harassment in the society, in the physical world, it is but obvious that a lot of that is pushed towards women, and that kind of harassment, that kind of women centric uh, crime face is also reflective in your digital platform. That is the digital reality for women in India. And despite there being an improved connectivity, despite there being, women being pushed under the garb of women empowerment and all of, the various initiatives that are going about, what happens behind, a drone didi or a, lakpati didi and, all your boost to women being, catered to on these digital platforms? Unfortunately, it still reflects, it is not able to cater to all the harassment that happens across the board. There is barely any digital literacy that is specifically, gender driven. There is barely any literacy across the board when you look at your urban versus rural patterns. You will find that, let's say that there was a study done last year where we were seeing how much accessibility there is in terms of rural India, and you found that it was only 21% of the total women in rural households who had access to a mobile phone. Forget that they were the owners of that mobile phone. Now, accessibility becomes a problem. Now, when these women do get that accessibility, and this is not just a rural urban problem, within urban setups also, you will see a very similar pattern reflective of the very lack of awareness, the lack of, how do you properly use a digital device and all of those things. Now, when you do get to that point, that when you are in an environment, when you do have that access, unfortunately, you're not in a safe, secure environment. Now, if a simple question that I were to put to the cohort, how many of you have come across an unwelcomed, hey, hello, what's up from, men repeatedly? Chances are, and because this is the kind of topic that sort of, invites shame or invites a hush hush conversation, I will not put you in the spotlight to come and share your experience. But if you want and if you can, I'd be more than happy to take that, conversation. Unfortunately, though, this has become one of the greatest and the single greatest barriers to online participation when we talk about safety in the in the online ecosystem. And you will find that cybercrime against women has increased a total 237% year on year when you look at 21 to 22, 22 to 23. And that is a very sorry state of affairs. Now, with that kind of numbers in mind and in that context, we begin to sort of question, what do you even, what do you even understand by online harassment, right? Um, Now, of course, anonymity is one thing that sort of pushes any kind of unwanted behavior, against any individual. And we see that typically it is directed towards women. Now, in this, a typical characteristic would be that someone has approached you multiple times over. So this is one of the characteristics that we find, that there is some sort of unwanted behavior that is being exhibited. And chances are that this is a repeated behavior. When I say repeated behavior, it is sustained beyond one instance of it. right? So you will see that there are people who will continue to say, hey, nice DP. Then the next time you change it, nice DP, nice DP, nice DP. Or let's say that you put a post on your Instagram and, they will continue to sort of comment something which is lewd or something that is unwanted, unwelcomed. And they might, sort of intentionally be targeting one particular victim or multiple victims at a given point in time. And what this action is doing, it's simply a comment, right? It's simply a message. But the impact of it is that it is creating some sort of fear in the victim's mind, or it is creating some sort of distress or humiliation or a kind of harm that should be punished, right? And therefore, there are chances when you do not check this kind of harassment, there are chances that this translates directly into your offline scenario, which makes it even more dangerous. So with that kind of exhibition of unwelcomed behavior, we have started to map what are the different kinds of online harassments that are happening in today's day and age. And typically speaking, it could be that it's stalking. So cyber stalking then becomes something which is extremely harmful, where there is some persistive monitoring that is happening. There is, it's not just that I visit your LinkedIn and you see that, I have visited your social media platform. Now, it could be that the next time that I open my LinkedIn, I again see that you have visited my, profile, and the next day again, and the next day again. Now, is this going to amount to stalking? That's my question. Is that what you understand by stalking? Would this qualify as cyber stalking if I were to open your LinkedIn every day, visit it every day? Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, the thing is that I have to do something that is unwelcomed, and it has to be something which is persistive in nature, which is continuing in nature. So it can't be that, once or twice I come and look at someone's LinkedIn account or someone's social media account, and that will qualify per se as stalking, right? So it has to be monitoring, it has to qualify as, following and contacting that person. It has to do with that. Let's say today I, looked at your LinkedIn, using that LinkedIn profile or information, I try to search you on Instagram. From that I search you on Twitter, which is now X, and everywhere I go ahead to follow you. Now just this following might in itself again not be cyber stalking, but when I start to send you requests, send you messages, like everything, and I have been, the other person has somewhere conveyed to you that there is some sort of discomfort that is happening because of my this behavior, that is when it starts to permeate into stalking, right? Merely going and looking might not in itself be a crime. But now inherently, what if I start saving your photographs and start sharing those photographs to other people, or start saving your posts and your videos and start to share those? Again, this is when it starts becoming a problem. So merely watching, merely landing on your profile, not in itself a criminal behavior. But when I start to take steps beyond that mere watching, is when it becomes problematic and we start to enter the gray area, right? Then similarly, cyberbullying. Now, my saying that, oh, I don't like this photo, in itself not bullying, right? And I can keep on saying to every single photo of yours, I don't like this photo. Now, in itself, this is not bullying, right? And you might be hurt by my saying online and publicly that I don't like your photo, but in itself, it is not bullying. When does this behavior become problematic? When it is deliberate, when it is repeated, when it is, some sort of I'm exhibiting a hostile kind of behavior towards you. And, this could be intentionally to harm you or cause some sort of humiliation. So now I start calling you names. I start to sort of put, abusive kind of comments on your photographs, or I leave it on your DMs. Then it starts becoming a problem. So in itself, my giving you an opinion that I don't like a photo is not bullying. But when I do it with an intention, that it causes you humiliation, that others also laugh along, and take cheap shots at you, that is when it becomes a problem. Similarly, it could be that I am downloading your photos, morphing those images, creating deep fakes out of it, because today we have placed ourselves in a time where AI tools are there, and I can very easily morph your photos and images, and be able to sort of transmit those across different groups. Now, obviously, in itself, this is wrong, right? It sounds wrong. um, then you have something called doxing. Now, doxing could be that maybe initially I have some sort of information that I'm privy to. It could be that I already know your private information. I know where you live. I know your phone numbers, and I have been privy to that information previously. Now, because of some sort of disagreement, some sort of envy, something has happened, which is why I will publicly reveal your private information or an identifier to the world at large, right? So I will make such information, private information, public without your consent. Now, the moment I do it, this amounts to doxing, right? Similarly, it could be that another, form of online harassment is sextortion. We also have other kinds where, I am extorting you, extorting money out of you, extorting, some images, while saying that, if you don't do me, don't share your images, don't share your videos, I will reveal to the world that previously I may have recorded you in a certain, way, and I will make that public. So we have, we increasingly have more and more such examples where you see that a lot of online harassment is increasingly towards women, directed towards women. And unfortunately, what is happening is that you do not have specific laws that cater exactly to this kind of behavior, that caters to you exactly saying that can there be, can there be a crime that explicitly takes care of doxing? Can I complain under IPC, or which is, erstwhile IPC, now BNS? Can I directly go to, or where do I go? Under what law do I go and report any kind of this behavior? Unfortunately for us, the Umbrella Act that governs any kind of online behavior and any kind of criminal online behavior, the Umbrella Act is, your IT Act. Now, IT Act obviously is not looking at all the things that we have looked, just talked about. Before we progress to the act itself, we do understand that, just from one of these examples also, there's going to be a very heavy psychological impact and professional impact that any of the victims will face. And typically, you would have PTSD symptoms, you would have a loss of self-confidence. You also typically see that anyone who becomes a victim to any of these online crimes, there will be a social withdrawal. This social withdrawals at times can also be that you have self-censored yourself from engaging in an online life that you otherwise would have, right? Self-censorship, typically you will see in women more versus when you look at how men get to live their full online lives. And that is something, again, where you see social withdrawal patterns more in women, which directly shows that online, such behavior is either being reported more by women, or the other corollary is that women are, in fact, the higher victims of such crime. Uh, and then also, typically, what we've seen is when such things become public, there have been multiple instances where such women have gone ahead and lost, their employments because there is a damage to reputation. They lose out on their future career opportunities. And ultimately, what, your psychological personal impact, which carries over to your professional environments, ultimately, you will see that this will have a social impact as well, right? Your families, most families, we typically, even in India, we see that there will be distress instead of being, supportive. There will be a lot of shame that comes to that individual. And typically we, engage in victim blaming. So with all that, it is important that we know where to go, how to report, what to do, what are the steps that we can take to sort of prevent any kind of such harm. Now, typically speaking, these are a whole sum of, laws that look at any kind of online behavior, and any kind of online harm that is being caused out of such behavior. The mother or the umbrella act in all this is your IT Act, which was amended in 2008. And now it has also been amended in 2023 under the Jan Vishwas Act. Unfortunately, this is a, lost opportunity. When you're amending an act as latest as 2023, we were hopeful that such online harms would find a specific, overt, explicit category under the amendment, which was not the case. So we are stuck back to a 2000 Act, which we stretch to such behaviors and try to implicate any kind of, such harmful behavior under those existing provisions as, as such. Now, BNS is looking at, erstwhile IPC provisions. Some sort of relief has been granted, some stretches, some more stringent punishments have come into picture. But largely you see that, stalking, voyeurism, all these which already existed continue to exist with stricter punishments in place. Now, POXO again becomes important for us in terms of, any kind of sexual offenses directed towards children, any kind of, this indecent behavior or obscene behavior directed towards children. Everything is read with IT Act. Similar is the case of DV Act. Now, typically you see that DV Act in itself might not have been so relevant in this case, but DV and Indecent Representation of Women's Act, both of these acts, typically you see the usage when there are two partners that are involved, and one of the partners has gone ahead out of some revenge, out of some vengeance. They go ahead and make public some photograph or some video of their partners, which was shared in a private space, shared with consent. But now, because of the revenge factor coming into picture, they have made it public. Now, these are some of the acts that become important for us to look at and, to talk about. In this, like I say, IT Act is the mother act, and therefore this is the act that we have to very importantly talk about. Now, of course, there is, this begins from Section 66, which talks about all your computer-related offenses. Any time that you add any intention and criminal behavior to anything online, Section 66 gets activated, right? And with that begins, where are cyber crimes related to, or, cyber harassment related crimes placed. So every time that we, look at any specific section, we look at section 66 being read with that section. Now, that said, the unfortunate part of all this is that cyber stalking, which is very, very prevalent in India, cyber stalking, cyber bullying, all of these offenses, which are very much prevalent in India and globally. Of course, it's not that just India is, facing this problem, but you'd be surprised to know we don't have a section that now directly criminalizes online harassment in terms of stalking, in terms of bullying. Why is that? Is because we used to cover it under Section 66A. Now, 66A was a very, very wide section which used to talk about sending offensive messages through communication services, which was typically your social media platforms, your emails, your messaging applications. So anywhere, wherever you send any of the, harassing messages, 66A would have come to picture. You would have been able to use it. Any woman would have been able to use it, and they would have filed a case under 66A. The unfortunate part of Section 66A was that it was too wide in its ambit. It was too ambiguous when, it was made applicable. And typically you saw that the state abused it in its favor because the terms that were used under Section 66A, they were somewhere, so wide. They, if any message caused annoyance, if it was causing inconvenience, if it was causing distress to any other person, Section 66A could be invoked, right? Which is problematic because things like annoyance, things like inconvenience, distress, these are very, very subjective terms. And without a overt definition that somewhere limits the scope of such ambiguous words, what was left was the state using it in its favor to, limit free speech. This is where your case of Shreya Singhal, gets invoked. And this is a case where, on Facebook, someone goes to comment against the, bandh that happens, the political bandh that happens in Maharashtra. And, another person simply likes that post, and both of these people are put behind the bars because of such a statement on Facebook. Now, in itself, liking a post should not have been criminalized. But you see that this is what Section 66A's abuse was. And therefore, under Shreya Singhal, the court went to, make it unconstitutional. It directed the state to sort of, decriminalize, any case that was anyway pending or, being heard under Section 66A, that it be read down in its entirety. Unfortunately, that also did not happen. And we have the PUCL versus Union of India case that once again in 2023 comes and says that no, Shreya Singhal is right in its holding of Section 66A as unconstitutional. Now, when your apex court goes ahead and in its entirety reads down an entire section, the corollary effect that it has is that in today's day and age, when things like cyber stalking and cyber bullying, they are so much prevalent. Now you do not have a section in the entire IT Act where you can, say that this offense will be, catering to section to such offense. And therefore, you have to realize that you can't really directly book anyone under, for the offense of cyber stalking or for the offense of cyber bullying under IT Act. So that is one thing that becomes unfortunate. It becomes, a loophole. And then again, there is a deliberation happening. There is a joint parliamentary committee that is looking at how do you revise section, IT Act in its entirety, because it is not able to cater to one of the most prevalent problems in the digital platforms. Now, while Section 66A debate is something that is important to have, another kind of crime that becomes extremely important for us to discuss and talk about are Section 66C and Section 66D. Now, this is where I would like to take a pause and ask if anyone has any questions. Are we clear? Do we want to share something till Section 66A? And then my second question is, do you feel there is, in principle, any difference between identity theft and cheating by impersonation? Or are they, in your understanding, in spirit, the same, one and the same thing, or at least overlapping?
Ma'am, good evening. My name is Anuj. I want to ask a question.
Someone shared something, you're not audible clearly.
Ma'am, my name is Anuj. I'm a third year law student and I want to ask something.
Yes, Anuj, please.
Ma'am, my question is, ma'am, why Indian government is not doing anything about the women's crime or crime against women in cyber like deepfakes and cyber section or cyber area of the country, as like this government is promoting digital India and digital currency, UPI payments at the war footing, but not the cyber security for women at the war footing. Why the reason is behind this? Because women are also taking advantage. Some women are not good at all the time, and men are also not good at all the time. Both are there at their equal fault sometimes in this cyber crime or digital crime. But why government is not taking initiative at war footing, like against the crime, like in developed countries we have seen some cases.
War crime, I'm sorry, Anuj, what do you mean by that?
मैम एक्चुअली एट लार्ज स्केल क्यों नहीं करती है इंडियन गवर्नमेंट कुछ वुमेन्स के क्राइम अगेंस्ट वुमेन्स पे मैम, ये डिजिटल एरा में और डिजिटल साइबर क्राइम में मैम, ये मैं पूछ रहा हूँ कि क्यों नहीं करती है कुछ इंडियन गवर्नमेंट की एक्चुअली। यहाँ पे पुलिस स्टेशन में अगर मैम साइबर जैसे पुलिस स्टेशन हैं वहाँ पे, अगर वहाँ पे फैसिलिटीज हैं, उनको करते भी हैं वुमेन्स को, लेकिन वहाँ पे उतनी जल्दी सॉल्व नहीं होते केसेस, ये रिपोर्ट भी नहीं होते, तो उसमें क्या प्रॉब्लम है, क्या उसमें बैरियर्स हैं, ये पूछना चाहता हूँ मैं एक्चुअली।
So, Anuj, the problem is more systemic, if you ask me honestly. क्योंकि आप देखो, क्राइम तो कोई भी कर सकता है, दैट इज ट्रू, राइट, एंड किसी के भी अगेंस्ट हो सकता है, लेकिन हम लोग जो टिपिकली देखते हैं वो देखते हैं कि आपका जैसे फिजिकल वर्ल्ड चल रहा है उसमें भी मोस्ट ऑफ ये जो क्राइम्स हैं आप देखोगे ये विमेन के अगेंस्ट हो रहे हैं। वी हैव स्पेसिफिक क्राइम्स, जैसे आपका हैरेसमेंट हो गया, या लड़की छेड़ना हो गया, या आपका रेप एंड ऑल हो गया। वाइल क्राइम है वो आप देखोगे टिपिकली विमेन के अगेंस्ट हो रहा है। ऐसे ही जब हम ऑनलाइन देखते हैं, जनरल लॉज हैं, साइबर बुलिंग, साइबर स्टॉकिंग तो किसी के भी अगेंस्ट हो सकता है, पर ये हो किसके अगेंस्ट ज्यादा रहा है, ये विमेन के अगेंस्ट ज्यादा हो रहा है। सो इसमें आपका ये नहीं है कि गवर्नमेंट क्यों नहीं कुछ स्टेप ले रही है ताकि विमेन के अगेंस्ट ये क्राइम ना हो। उनको इनफैक्ट ये स्टेप लेना है कि ये क्राइम ही ना हो। तो अब while there can be a direct mirror of your physical world in your digital world, there are going to be patriarchal problems that will permeate from your physical world to your digital world. अब आप अगर रिपोर्टिंग की बात करो कि क्यों नहीं रिपोर्ट होता है, ये या तो आपकी अवेयरनेस की बात है कि मोस्टली लोगों को पता ही नहीं है कि रिपोर्ट करना है तो कहाँ करना है। दूसरा होता है कि देखो, विमेन के लिए डेडिकेटेड हेल्पलाइंस बनाई हुई हैं, डेडिकेटेड आपके नंबर्स हैं। कितने लोग जानते हैं कि वो क्या नंबर्स हैं? कितने लोगों ने कभी कॉल करके देखा कि डायरेक्टली आपकी बात हो पा रही है या नहीं हो पा रही है? तीसरा आता है कि जब आप रिपोर्ट करने जाते हो तो क्या वो आपकी प्रॉब्लम सुनते हैं या नहीं सुनते हैं। नाउ दिस इज वेयर मेजोरिटी ऑफ द प्रॉब्लम इज दैट परहैप्स जो लोग वहां पे हैं उनकी ट्रेनिंग ठीक से नहीं हुई है कि वो आम आदमी की बातें सुन पाए, उनकी बातों को ऐसे नकार ना दे, मना करे. So this is a problem that you typically see in the behavior of the police personnel, where they dismiss people who come to them with a problem, right? Typically, they will say that, oh, nothing will happen. You will not find your money. Nothing will, why do you want to go through the entire cycle of, the criminal procedure that is going to happen? And, this is going to be year on year. It's going to take time for the court to come to a solution and all of that. So they're more dismissive. So it's not like that judicial systems are not there in place. Can they be better? For sure. But ultimately, these acts, these provisions that are there, they will be able to somewhere or the other cater to every single problem that is there, as long as these personnel are trained enough that you have to be more empathetic. You have to explain to people that this is the problem, this is the procedure, this is how it will flow. As long as they are trained better, I think that largely that is the problem, that we can handle all this. Second is, of course, awareness is the mother of all solutions. And typically, you see that, especially rural side, there is no awareness that people can go and file these cases and all of those things. So that is something that the government is doing. There are multiple initiatives that are happening now. The success of those initiatives might be in question at the moment. But that said, there are multiple public-private partnerships that are happening so that we can spearhead more of these awareness campaigns so that people are more aware that, there is some sort of solution. That said, is everything hunky-dory? No, it is not. Like I said in the starting also, amendment of 2023 under the Jan Vishwas Act was somewhere a failed opportunity. They could have easily made, cyber stalking, cyber bullying, or, anything, doxing and all that we see today, revenge porn. They could have taken it under the ambit of the amendment and could have criminalized such behavior, but they didn't do it. At the moment, if you read the, developing jurisprudence and you see what the parliament is doing anything about it, there is in fact a joint parliamentary committee which is looking at an overhauling of the entire IT Act altogether. So it's not just one amendment that is going to suffice. What perhaps we are expecting is that just like your IPC was revised into BNS, we are expecting that IT Act in its entirety is going to be revised into a new act. Now, when that happens is a long drawn process, as any of these acts are. And somewhere what we see in BNS also, it was mostly a restructuring of IPC only, where we retained the language and mostly things were not really amended. Of course, some stricter penalties were put to place. So largely, it's not like nothing is happening or government is doing nothing about it, but only time can tell whether whatever acts and whatever initiatives they are taking, will they suffice in the long run. So as of now, we are stuck with the old provisions, and we see how your new age crimes are going to be accommodated under these sections. Does that make sense, Anuj?
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
So let's say, of course, section 66C and 66D, your identity theft and cheating by personation are extremely important and relevant in today's time. And that's because under identity theft, if I can very simply put it for all of you, if I were to take any individual's credentials, right? If I were to, let's say, take your ID and password and then use it at another point, to misappropriate your funds or to, launch another sort of opinion on your, let's say, social media platform, etc. The moment I take your credentials and use it without your permission, without your authorization, anything I do beyond that is identity theft, because I have taken your actual credentials. When I say credentials, I mean to say your ID, password. It could be your, of course, for your purposes right now, we are talking about ID and password because of all the social media related crimes that happen because of it, right? People say that, oh, I was hacked, and someone else sort of uploaded all my photos or, deleted all my photos and all of those things. But identity theft can also go ahead to, if we were to talk about financial crimes, which is not the purview of this lecture, but all your debit cards, credit cards, all of those things. Also, once they are stolen, because they are your financial identifiers, even though those get, criminalized under Section 66C. Why? Because I have taken a personal identifier of yours, your ID password, and I have used it, misappropriated it without your authorization. Second is Section 66D, which is cheating by personation. Now, here I have not actually, stolen any of your identity, in the sense that I have not taken your ID password or any identifier of yours, but I have, let's say, created a fake profile and I have used your image on it. Now, this is going to be cheating by personation. I am misleading people into thinking that I am someone else, right? Now, in this, does anyone have a question? Okay. Now, in this, typically, you will see cases of morphing, cases of deep fakes. This is where, Section 66D comes into picture, because you have morphed someone's face on someone else's, body, and, made a, let's say, lewd video out of it, or you have created a deep fake, which is very, very similar to, or replicating how you look, how you talk, and then basis that you have gone ahead and conducted any kind of criminal behavior online, be it indecent behavior, be it lewd remarks, anything. And even when you say that you just want it to be funny, this will be cheating by personation, and it will come under Section 66D. Very well, it can be criminalized, and you can be jailed for any such deep fake or any such morphed photo, whether you send it on social media platform, whether you send it via email, anything. It's all criminalized under Section 66C and D. Very, very important. Mostly you will see that the usage of it at times overlaps, and you will typically see in your FIRs that these are taken together. Next, very important section for the purview of this lecture becomes Section 66E, which is violation of privacy. Now, privacy, as we understand it today, is coming rightly from your, how Puttaswamy judgment read privacy. It broke down that there are 8 and 9 categories of privacy, from your informational privacy to your behavioral privacy, all of the different categories and cadres of privacy that the judgment went ahead to create. Now, Section 66E has a very limited purview. It is not a broad, provision. It is only talking about your bodily privacy. In that, if there is a person who is to take someone else's photograph or videograph in their private space, right? And let's say, their private parts are showing in that image or video or any, capture of that person's private parts, and then that capture is transmitted, this is going to be what Section 66E is going to criminalize. Now, what is very important is that there should be no expectation of that person to be photographed in that area. So, which means that if someone is at their home and their curtains are open, and from a faraway place, you go ahead and sort of take their video or take their photo, this is directly punishable under 66E, right? Now, another thing, you have applications like Snapchat, you have, WhatsApp has that one-time view feature. This is again why 66E will become important. Now, if you were to take any such photograph or video and you were to send it on that one-time view, even for that one-time view, you will be criminalized under 66E. Okay. The other thing is, let's say on Snapchat, you send a photo or a video, and the other person deleted their Snapchat account. So they never saw what you sent. You will still be penalized under 66E because transmission also is punishable under 66E. So it's not just publication is necessary, transmission itself is criminalized if you have conducted such act. So very, very powerful, although limited in its purview. Section 66E is going to criminalize any such online behavior. Uh, if similarly you were to sort of, we have section 67 and 67A, where any kind of obscene material, it could be that you have written something obscene and there are some chats that some person is having with another person and you leak those chats. That becomes, punishable under 67. And then publishing sexually explicit material again becomes punishable under section 67A. Again, 67 and 67A typically are read together because of the overlap of obscene and sexual in its definition itself. Now, all in all, what becomes important for us is to understand that each of these will be read with your violation of privacy under section 72. And in your online sphere, whenever we claim that, I had sent something to someone in a very confidential space, in a very confident, someone was my confidant, and then they went ahead and leaked something, it will become punishable. It will invite 72, it will invite 66, and along with that, whatever I have done, it can come under section 66C, 66D, 66E. Now, one thing that also becomes important in terms of online harassment and section 66E, it could be that you clicked a photo of mine with my consent. So this is where your revenge porn and all becomes, comes in and gets criminalized. It could be that partners, click some photos or, videographs of themselves in an intimate space. Now, later, when they part ways, one of the partners, he makes public a certain photo which was clicked with consent at the time. Now, consent would then be seen as limited to the circumstance of those partners. And later, anyone, revealing those photos or, videos, etc., all of that again becomes criminalized. So consent has to be seen from point A to Z. Any point where the consent has been withdrawn, you can no longer claim that the photo was with you or your ownership was there, because at the time when you clicked it, you had consent of the person. So all of those things get accommodated well within your IT Act. Does anyone have any questions? Right.
Ma'am, actually, I had a question. Ma'am,
Yes,
as you said, that a lot of people they do not know how to report
correct.
such cases. But ma'am, a lot of times, apart from this online harassment, we see some mothers at our home, even some women in the rural areas. And if you're not talking about the metropolitan cities, in some cities we see women facing those harassments even at their home in marriages. So they just do not want to report that. So that is also the main concern. It's not because they do not know how to report. They think that what will the society say about us or about our in-laws that, this woman is doing something like this. So I think that also becomes a concern that they do not want to report.
Correct. Now, I completely agree with you that, of course, awareness is not the only reason. While we feel that it is one of the major barriers, it is not the only barrier, right? Janvi, you have rightly pointed out that a lot of it has to do with social stigma. Oh, what will society think? And, typically when I do report an online behavior, I do not want to part ways with my partner, for example, right? And if I file a case against him, typically it's either going to be that that person might feel more harassment at home, or they might even abuse the person who has reported such kind of behavior in the first place. So all of those social problems also creep in the society when we say that, there is not a lot of reporting that is happening. But that also somewhere shows the failure of the system itself, that the system will not be able to protect me if I were to say that, hey, I'm being harassed. Forget being harassed multiple times. I might not report even if I was, harassed once. Because of that kind of at the back of my head, I'm like, the system will not be able to protect me. So yeah, somewhere the system is failing in, being able to ensure that trust, because it has happened to multiple women and they have not gotten justice. And therefore, if I do it, what good does that, hold? And maybe that is the case why people don't go ahead and report. So you're right that, there are those other factors as well. It is a multitude of factors, all in all, that we see. But in that sense, of course, there's that social stigma, and then there is that, social weight that this decision carries that stops me from reporting. But if I did have a better awareness, and if I did, if I was someone who wanted to report, just didn't know where to go, to that level, maybe, this conversation helps that, hey, we are not here to shame, right? If you are facing a kind of unwelcomed message, for example. Yeah. Uh, I think someone has a question or something to add.
Sheetal, do you have a question? No,
Or
ma'am, you can continue.
perhaps whenever you want to add in, Sheetal or anyone, I feel like it's important because it's not just me as a person who has done something or not done something, but I'm pretty sure if you were to take a survey of how many of us faced an unwelcomed message from a guy, for example, right? Speaking only on behalf of all the women, an unwelcomed comment on your photograph, on, something, the way you were looking a particular day, etc. It's unwelcomed. You heard it and then you absorbed it. There was nothing that you did anything about it, even though we are, more empowered than our, rural counters, for example. Now, this conversation becomes important for each one of us then, that, hey, once you don't do it, this person is going to go ahead and make another person uncomfortable. Another woman will be made uncomfortable because today I didn't speak up, or I didn't, draw that boundary with this person. That kind of also pushes them that because once was okay, then multiple times is equally okay. And most of the times it's also happening, they're not doing it because we don't know that there are specific sections within your IT Act or within your BNS, which makes each one of this behavior, a criminal act. So if I don't know that something is criminalized, chances are that I will just let it be, that, oh, nothing, this is just normal, and I will accept it as normal. So perhaps that is also why this conversation becomes important. I hope that makes sense, Janvi. Yes. All right. Now, while I have, told you that these are the certain things that happen, we also have some kind of, romance and mentorship scams that are happening where women are seen to be psychologically manipulated and, emotionally exploited by their bosses, by someone in authority, who will keep validating that, oh, you're so important, you're so smart, and, then after they have gained that kind of trust, these people will ask for some sort of sexual favor, some sort of, oh, send me a photo, I helped you for in particular scenario, etc. And you see that typically this will then cross over to a space which is very, very uncomfortable, and you will see a pattern of this happening. And there are multiple instances that have been reported to the government that entire romance and mentorship scams have been sold out. So scam as a product is being sold out to various men, who then, look at all these, who join certain groups on Telegram, on, other platforms, and then they learn how to do all this behavior, and then they go ahead and scam the woman. involved. So that is also another new kind of online problematic behavior that we are coming across. Similarly, impersonation, fake identities, online grooming. Again, while impersonation and creating fake identities is directly involved and criminalized under Section 66D, you do not have a particular criminalizing act or provision in terms of online grooming. And typically, you see it is older men. Typically, this may not always be the case, but typically, on online platforms, older men approach younger women, and they sort of first gain their trust. Outside of that trust, they ask these women, younger girls in fact, to start, they question them, and this curiosity of theirs, uh, using that curiosity, they will then ask such girls to perform acts in secrecy, which will slowly and slowly sort of tell them, oh, this is for your benefit, for your security, for your, and that kind of manipulation is fed into those girls, and then they are made to perform certain actions which otherwise they would not have had they not been manipulated into that kind of behavior. Now, again, manipulation per se is not, an online criminal act in terms of under your IT Act itself. And therefore, it becomes problematic because there's no direct overt provision that you can, sort of invoke to criminalize such behavior. Now, that said, it also becomes important that we look at what are IPC and BNS doing in this sphere. And you see that there is this entire list of sections that I've created, which I'll share with you. And, of course, you have your sexual harassment, which is, overtly criminalized act, which would include in its ambit any kind of colored remark that someone makes towards anyone, right? And that color could be anything unwelcomed, typically, you even saying, that something looks good in a certain way that comes across as a lewd comment will be a colored remark. You can use satire and sorry, not satire, but you can use like euphemistic language, which is just covering what you actually wanted to say in a, in other words. That would also be included in sexual harassment when it is told to you that something is unwelcomed and you deliberately continue to use that kind of language to make the other person uncomfortable. Similarly, you have voyeurism. Voyeurism is something that, you're watching someone and you're capturing their images without, their consent. And this is a direct link to your Section 66E of IT Act. So where, violation of privacy under Section 66E we were talking about, that directly comes under voyeurism in your BNS. So it is criminalized under both of your, acts, statutes. Again, stalking here, BNS obviously makes stalking a crime, while IT Act took away Section 60, Shreya Singhal case took away Section 66A, which was criminalizing, your stalking, cyber stalking. Here, it gets included because of BNS. Under IPC, it wasn't really a thing, but under BNS, they have included online monitoring, digital monitoring. Karishma, you have a question.
Yes, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. As you have talked about, like in the like cases of romance or mentorship scams, like how does the law distinguish between genuine consent and the consent obtained via like tutoring? And one thing more, like these scams like happens in private conversations. So how can victim effectively prove coercion or like manipulation in the absence of direct evidence?
So, Karishma, I think this is a very valid question, and one that does not have one black and white answer. I'll be very honest. You're right in fact, arriving at that because it is a private conversation between two individuals. to prove that there was some sort of grooming involved becomes very, very difficult. Now, typically, we see that consent anywhere to establish anywhere is a challenging task, right? Now, it's not something to do with your online conversation, but you imagine consent under contracts also, and under other civil kind of conduct also, and you will see that establishing consent has been a debatable thing because it's subjective and can be withdrawn and all of those things. Now, if consent can be withdrawn, right, that is something that we typically use as a test. And when this one individual says no to the other person, in the conversation itself, how would the other person respond? Would they start to emotionally manipulate you, use tactics like, but I was always there for you, and how can you not give it? Or what's so wrong in you sharing an image? And it's just one image that I'm talking about. So those kind of manipulative tactics is something that the court has gone ahead to say that, this person in fact is manipulating the other person into sharing something that the other person is not comfortable sharing, right? Then typically it has been seen that the progression is from a conversation, typically, which will be unrelated. It will then become, once that trust is established, then it becomes sexual in nature. And then it becomes from sexual, one photograph, then so a small video, then so there was this is a UK example that I'm giving you, where a music composer is involved, and he is grooming a 19-year-old girl into this kind of act. And what happens is that after that video, he calls her on a Skype call, and he requests her, or tells her to perform certain acts on that Skype call. He records it, and then he places it on a pornographic website. Now, the progression when it started did not have anything to do with anything sexual in nature, but there is progression that happens. And when that guy was being investigated, it was seen that he had this pattern with multiple girls. So this girl wasn't the only victim of this music composer. And this is just how you have to go ahead and investigate step by step, because it has a pattern. It's not a one-off thing that will happen. It will typically happen in patterns, and these are just the recognition points, right? So while it is subjective, and while of course there will be no direct sort of immediate direct proof about that, there was manipulation and there was grooming involved. But once you do investigate, you do see that, these patterns continue to crop up case on case. And this is how you understand that someone was a victim of grooming. Does that make sense, Karishma?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
All
Bit
right.
confusing.
What?
Like it was a very bit confusing. Like it's covered, I guess, in a gray area.
It is. Honestly, it is. It's not like, your criminal acts, your IT act is making online grooming, an overt sort of crime. And because, it does have gray facets to it, and therefore it is up to the court to look at the circumstances of the case, right? So circumstantial evidence becomes of paramount importance. And, most of the times you can also see that powerful people might end up getting, free, and, the case might not be proved against them. But the fact of the matter is that there are cases, which do go ahead and prove and hold good before the court of laws. And we have, successful convictions as well. But that said, of course, without a statute saying what kind of behavior and under what characteristics would something qualify as a crime, you have to go back to the circumstantial evidence. So it is what it is at the moment, and I'm not saying that it's a great position to be in, but on the face of it, this is what we have to deal with, right? So these are multiple sections and, the kind of criminal actions that we can take on in terms of, problematic online behavior. Now, that said, when you do become, when you do know that someone has become a victim or something is happening, uh, what do you do? Obviously, you do not have to panic. You have to capture everything that you can. One thing that they typically tell you is before blocking the person, you're supposed to record everything. You have to record all the transactions that has happened, and then you have to report. Now, where do you report? You directly either call the 1930 cybercrime helpline, or you go to the cybercrime portal and then you register your complaint. Now, so this is the 1930 thing that this is a pan India number. Now, what you all have to be very, very wary of is that at the moment, 1930, while it is a pan India number, you can only call it, let's say I'm calling it from Gujarat. So you can only reach it using a Gujarat registered number, SIM. And that is a problem that has been raised with the government time and again, that this is a problem. Now, if I am someone who's traveling from West Bengal to Gujarat and something happens, a crime occurs against me, I will not be able to register directly at 1930, which will take a lot of time before I can arrive at actually filing the complaint or figuring out what to do about it. Now, what you can do as an alternative, so I have listed out a set of things, a set of portals that you can reach out to. Of course, your cyber crime reporting portal becomes paramount importance. You can go ahead and search the portal. There is a manual that is attached to this portal which will help you understand, very simply written in simple English it has been written, and it covers close to 30, 40 categories of crimes, and how do you go and report it, and how do you understand what is what. All that has been already given under the cybercrime.gov.in. And then, of course, there are different platforms. You have women-specific helpline numbers. 181 is, women's helpline number, which is, again, pan-India. It works. Unfortunately, what has been reported is that most of the times, and this is coming from a personal experience, that there have been so many women which have come up and told me that no one is picking these numbers. And we were stuck in a very, lewd sort of situation, a very scary situation. And we tried to call 181, but no one picked up. So the system does need to get better. Like I said, that, there are faults within the system, that while these, portals have been made, dedicatedly made for such kind of incidents, at times the system fails you even when there is a provision directly to reach it. Now, that said, like I said, that there is a criminal manual, a citizen manual that has been given on the portal itself. What I'll do is I will share this share these, PPT with you, so that you can directly use the link and reach the report, the manual, and look for yourselves how, in simple English, all these crimes have been given. From your harassment to your cyber stalking to your even grooming as a crime. In fact, under the manual, it has been given and explained. So while you do not see, it featured in any of your statutes, your citizen manual does talk about it. So that is something that we are expecting when the IT Act is revised in its toto. You will see that, maybe you see some features also be published there. Now, just to show you very quickly how the portal works, if you see on the left, you will see that, your online and social media related crime is a category that you can, put. There is online trafficking that you can put. In terms of other categories of crime, if I were to show you, see that cyberbullying, cyber stalking, sexting, in fact, someone who's sexting with another person can be reported on the platform itself. Again, sexting in itself is not a cyber crime that IT Act talks about, but here under the portal, you can go ahead and make a complaint of such a person who is sending such texts. Similarly, you will see that there are, marriage scams, there are, other kinds of scams that are happening. All of those have been incorporated. Matrimonial fraud is there, profile hacking is there. All of those have been ensured that every single category of crime is listed there. Now, a counter of this is most of the people who land at that website will be in a panicky mode, and to search for each of, oh, what has happened and what do I want to complain about, again becomes problematic, because you have to search across a very wide category of crimes that has been listed. So while it is good, it does carry its own problems as well, right? um, then simply you have to fill whatever has happened. Like, let's say that it's a on Facebook, someone on Meta, someone has approached you and they are stalking you or sexting or, asking for favors. You have to list the time, you have to list the description, you can write any other, detail that you want to share. There is also a feature where you will be able to upload your screenshots. So that is the place within the portal that, you can quickly go ahead and describe everything, your complaint, who the suspect is, and, share your screenshots as well. Or, even if you have taken a screen recording of an entire audio, you can go ahead and upload it. So the portal, of course, allows for a very detailed sort of, reporting mechanism that is there. Any one of you can go ahead and, register and at least check out for yourselves that how it works, so that when you have to explain it to someone else, you are well versed with how to do it, how to help someone, how to report. Of course, this comes at a later stage. If you can, you will obviously first call the helpline numbers, because the people there will automatically fill this for you if if the call gets picked. Else, you can of course do it yourselves, or you can reach out to your cyber cells, the nearest cyber cell in the police station. They will also help you fill this, right? So this is just overall how we see it. Ultimately, prevention and awareness is the savior of our times. You have to ensure that there are two-factor authentications, that you keep your location services off, because at times people track where you are using your social media activity, and then they're able to sort of stalk you and locate where you are and trouble you and harass you. So just minor do's and don'ts will be able to sort of help you, navigate your online sort of, identity, and how the entire ecosystem is. And ultimately, I just feel like it is not an individual who needs to be, it's not like all women need to be constantly be thinking, oh, I need to be safe, and oh, I need to, take steps towards my own protection. It should be a community that should come together to be able to sort of allow a kind of free ecosystem for all women and, people across all genders, honestly. Because ultimately it is, internet which is a public sphere, and because it is a public sphere, a public space, women have a right to occupy it. They have a right to occupy it safely, freely, and without any fear. So while you maintain your digital hygiene, while you ensure that, there are some verifications habits that you continue to sort of engage in, you have to make a collective community effort towards all of this. While I say that this is a toolkit for that prevention, of course, none of this is a guarantee that something will not happen. So you have to keep those guardrails up at all times. And just, the first time that you feel uncomfortable, please share it with someone. And, when someone does share it with you, ensure that there is no shame attached, that you don't attach any kind of shame to the person who is sharing their audio, or, what made them uncomfortable. So I hope that, you take away this from this session. And if you have any further questions, I'd be more than happy to answer. Also, across all cyber platforms, there is cyberdos which is the government's portal that you can tag and then you can sort of tell them if you are facing any particular problem, and they will be able to respond to you most likely. So they have a dedicated cyber team which is looking at all these platforms, and any kind of online harm that you're facing or someone else is facing, you can reach out to these accounts. Right. Now, on that note, if you have any other questions, please feel free to ask. Anyone? All right. So then I think we can close the session.
If anyone has a question, you can also write it in the chat box.
Yes, absolutely.
It's okay. I think they don't have any more questions now. Thank
All
you
right.
so much, ma'am, for patiently addressing all our queries and for such an enriching session. On behalf of Adyant, the Civil Services Society of Institute of Home Economics, University of Delhi, and Naksh Foundation, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to our speaker, ma'am, and all our participants for being a part of today's session. We hope that this discussion has enhanced your understanding and encouraged you to engage more actively in cyber awareness and its initiatives. We request you to fill the post assessment form via the Google QR, which is displayed on your screen. Sir, I please request you to share the screen of the QR.
Perfect. Just a minute.
Yes. Because without the feedback form, you will not be able to get your certificate. Thank you once again for joining us.